The first thing I do every morning as a software engineer, I open what I call my Dopamine Diary. It's just one of 5 unconventional habits that help me jump from junior to principal engineer within 5 years. Let me show you why traditional productivity advice fails for software engineers. Okay, so years ago, I was burning out. I was trying to maintain focus through an 8-hour coding session, but my productivity would crash by mid-afternoon. But then one day, I came across this concept of a dopamine diary. And honestly, it is ridiculously simple. It's simply just an index card that I keep on my desk every single day. Okay, so at the start of each month, I list the habits I want to build down the left side of this index card. Things like review 1 PR, 20 minutes of studying, or commit code before noon. Then across the top half of the card, I create a grid with the dates across, numbering from 1 to 30. Every day I complete a habit, I check the box for that day. It's visual, it's satisfying, and most importantly, it taps into how our brains work. You see, every time you check one of these boxes, your brain releases this small hit of dopamine, the same chemical that makes video games so addicting. What's powerful is seeing those streaks build up. So after 1 week of consecutive check marks, you don't want to break the chain. The key insight that made this stick was using what I call the 2-minute rule. So what I want you to do, instead of writing down very vague goals like become better at system design, I want you to be extremely specific. Write down tiny actions like sketch 1 system design. Something so small, you couldn't say no to not starting it. Now, in my early years, I would spend weeks perfecting these features that got scrapped or changed at the last minute. Honestly, I was speaking code when the stakeholders were speaking business. Now, this disconnect was costing me countless hours. For example, during one frustrating project, I forced myself to explain technical decisions in business terms to our product manager. And honestly, I wish you could see their eyes light up. They actually understood why my approach mattered. That's when I realized technical skills alone wasn't enough. So I used what I call this transition layer, the ability to communicate technical concepts in business terms. This is how it works. Before starting any major task, I want you to ask yourself, how does this create value? Then frame your updates and discussions around that value. I'll admit, this one single habit actually fast-tracked my promotion to senior roles because I wasn't just solving these technical problems anymore. I was solving business ones. Now, for years, I tried to force myself to be more productive during the traditional hours because that's what I thought professionals do. I would struggle through the afternoon coding sessions with this foggy brain. Then I would waste my mornings when I actually felt sharp and creative. So I experimented with working during my natural peak hours. So here's what you need to do. I want you to map your natural energy patterns over the next 2 weeks, and then jot them down when you're most focused, most creative, and most importantly, most productive. Then, if you have the option, I want you to try to rearrange your schedule to align with these patterns that you jotted down. Now, I know, if you don't have this option, well, sorry, you're SOL. Just kidding. The best way I've come to realize this situation is have an honest conversation with your manager. Your manager should be inclined to help you become more productive. Otherwise, when you're creating this mapping, schedule deep work during your peaks and then handle those meetings and admin duties during your valleys. You don't want to fight your biology. You want to leverage it. And sometimes this might mean coding at 10 p.m. if that's when you're your sharpest, or blocking off your mornings if that's your prime time. So in my first year, I'd finish tickets exactly as they were described, even when I saw surrounding problems. But then when things inevitably would go wrong, I would sit there and I would think, this isn't my fault. I mean, I did exactly what they wanted. But instead of protecting me, this mindset was actually limiting my growth. So I adopted this ownership mindset. Don't just write code, own the outcome. And I want you to ask yourself, if this was my startup, what would I do? When you spot problems, don't just complain, I want you to propose solutions. This mindset is what separates developers who stay junior for years from those who rapidly advance. And it's not about doing more work, it's about thinking at a higher level. So before we get into the last and final lesson, if you're finding any of this valuable, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I put out weekly productivity and career hacks that help me accelerate my career. So early in my career, I avoided anything that would be uncomfortable. Challenging my manager's approach, presenting at team meetings, or working with unfamiliar technologies I wasn't comfortable with. I thought playing it safe would protect my career. But then I decided to force myself to volunteer for this high visibility project using a technology I barely knew. Honestly, I was terrified of failing publicly. But I stayed up late and I studied and I asked people for help. Not only did I succeed, but that project became a turning point in my career. So I implemented what I call this calculated risk protocol. Here's how it works. Every month, I want you to say yes to something that scares you professionally. Volunteer for that presentation. Tackle that unfamiliar technology. Challenge that problematic approach. Here's the thing. Fear is often suppressing your growth. And the key is to make these calculated risks. You want to prepare thoroughly, ask for help, and start small. This habit accelerated my career. Imagine when you put yourself into these positions, you're giving yourself the opportunities to grow more than you ever would. Now, these 5 habits, they transformed my engineering career far more than learning any framework or any programming language. Honestly, the dopamine diary, the transition layer, the energy mapping, the ownership mindset, and that calculated risk protocol, those are the things that I can attribute why my career accelerated so fast. So which one are you gonna try first? Let me know down in the comments, because I would love to hear any unconventional habits that helped your engineering career. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.